You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. Speaking of getting the best players, Alabama certainly has gotten the best players, and their fair share of them over the last 15 years. With Nick Saban's run of terror, having won 6 national titles at Alabama, you all know the story by now. But in the age of the transfer portal, even Alabama is not immune to players transferring. And shortly after they lost the national championship game to Georgia, seven Alabama players jumped into the portal on Tuesday, one day after. Look, they got to make up for lost time. I mean, no one's going to leave the team while you're in the hunt for a championship. But in the time from the end of the season for everybody else to now, these players have lost time. You're planning on transferring. Well, how many other spots have been filled with other players in the portal from Thanksgiving to now? Get it? So that's why it all happened at once. There are 2 players, though, in particular, of the 7, that, in my opinion, LSU needs to target, because it's 2 positions that LSU has of great need. Listen, LSU went into the bowl game with 38 scholarship players. It is so abundantly clear there are massive needs on both sides of the ball. LSU, Ed Ogeron left a dumpster fire, lit the match and walked away. We get it. The roster is in awful shape. He mismanaged it. He didn't recruit to it. He lost guys. He lost his team. People abandoned ship. It's awful. So LSU's got a lot of spots where they need to supplement. Now, I think if they stay healthy, there's some good spots. I like Mashburn at quarterback. We've talked about the numbers on the offensive line. You've already added a transfer there, Miles Frazier. I think you're fine at receiver. You've got 4 running backs and the potential to add another if Trevante Citizen signs as a part of this class. Defensively, you got some good defensive tackles. You could use more bodies on the defensive line. And we've talked about the secondary. You have numbers at safety. You have a dearth at cornerback. But 2 positions in particular that they have not yet addressed and need to: tight end, linebacker. And Jaleel Billingsley entered the transfer portal, and so did Drew Sanders. Okay, let me start with Billingsley. Billingsley, when he came out of high school, was a 4-star tight end. He was the number 11 tight end in the country. He's from Illinois. Now, unfortunately, I went and checked his 247 profile. He did not have a Notre Dame offer. So I don't know that Brian Kelly is enamored, but this is a guy at a massive position of need who is a freakish talent. Right now, the only tight ends that LSU have: Cole Taylor, Jack Mashburn, Mason Taylor. Cole Taylor's entering his 3rd year, and he's most famous for having his shoe thrown. Jack Mashburn's a former walk-on who basically they put him in there to block this past year. Did a great job, but let's not kid ourselves. And then Mason Taylor is an incoming freshman. You have nothing at tight end. Nothing. And Jack Besh is a receiver. So I'm talking about traditional tight end. You have a chance to add a guy like Billingsley, you do it. And yes, this is a guy that was often a discussion piece in Alabama circles because people wondered why they didn't see him more. Nick Saban talked throughout the season about buy-in and not having that from Billingsley. So there might be some personality stuff there that all might be very real. But if you're LSU today, you're willing to punt that. You're willing to push that aside because you're not looking for a long-term solution. You're looking for a stopgap. You're looking for someone to fill that spot year 1 for 1 year, and LSU has immediate playing time available for a guy like that. So, yes. And the sell to Jaleel Billingsley is pretty easy if you're Brian Kelly. You say, Jaleel. Hi, Brian Kelly. Nice to meet you. You might have heard I do a great Southern accent, and I don't believe that people from Boston have accents. Maybe you even saw my wicked dance moves on Twitter. Have a seat. Let's have a conversation. So, Jaleel, let me see. It says here that you play tight end. Is that correct? Oh, great. I'm not sure how familiar you are with my decade-long tenure at Notre Dame, but in that time, here's the list of the tight ends that were drafted from my program. Kyle Rudolph, Tyler Eifert, Troy Nicholas, Ben Koyak, Durham Smythe, Alize Mack, Cole Kmet, Tommy Tremble. Yep. I've had eight tight ends drafted from my time at Notre Dame. 8 drafted. Has LSU had 8 tight ends drafted in their history? I legit don't think so. It would be close. 8 tight ends drafted in Brian Kelly's 12 years at Notre Dame. What tight end wouldn't see that and go, yep, I can play for that guy? Jaleel Billingsley. That's one. Two is Drew Sanders. Now, he is being projected in the portal to Texas. Steve Sarkisian was at Alabama and is now the head coach at Texas, and maybe that's exactly where he's going to land. I could check to see if there's been an update since I prepped this out earlier today, and maybe that is exactly where he lands. I don't know. I sure hope not. All right, he has not yet committed anywhere. Some have him crystal ball to Texas. Others are saying that Oklahoma should be considered the favorite. Either way, Drew Sanders was a 5-star linebacker coming out of Denton, Texas. So you're going to see some projections to the state of Texas. He's 6'5", 232. He was a 5-star. He was the number 1 athlete in the country, the number 3 player in Texas, the number 22 overall prospect in the country when he signed in the class of 2020. Struggled to get on the field at Alabama the last 2 years, but it doesn't change the fact that you're talking about a guy who is big, fast, physical, strong, and at a position of dire need for LSU. I don't know if they can get in the mix for Sanders or if it's just a foregone conclusion he's going to join Sark at Texas. Maybe that's the case. But my goodness, this is a guy who at a position of need would be an immediate plug-and-play guy. When you look at LSU's linebackers, let's assume Mike Jones returns. We haven't heard yet, but let's assume Mike Jones returns. After Mike Jones, and really you've got Greg Penn, who played in the bowl game and late in the season because of injuries and opt-outs and all that sort of stuff. But other than that, the linebackers you have are Josh White, Phillip Webb, Antoine Sampa, and Jared Small, who, of course, Calic High, love the guy, but former walk-on, and I don't know that he'll ever be a starter. Just suffered a season-ending injury before the season started. My point is you have nobody in that linebacker corps that has any level of experience. Let me rephrase. Mike Jones played a ton at Clemson. He didn't play a lot for LSU this past year. After Mike Jones and the little bit of run that Greg Penn got, Josh White, Phillip Webb, Antoine Sampa, and Jared Small. That's it. That's your linebacker room. You need immediate plug-and-play help, and that's an easy sell to Drew Sanders. Hey, man, we pump defensive players in the league. We've got a former, an NFL linebackers coach who's coming to be our defensive coordinator, who's been a coordinator in the SEC, will be your position coach. Come join us. As much as LSU has lamented seeing guys like Elias Ricks go to Bama and other players leave, this is an opportunity where there are 2 players from Alabama who were highly recruited athletes at positions of dire need for LSU that you could get immediately and make your roster better. See if Brian Kelly can get it done. They are going to make over this roster in the transfer portal. It's not even debatable. That's going to happen. These 2 guys will help a ton. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.